Welcome on back, everybody, to another episode of Listening to the Voices in Our Heads. We've got a community darling here on the authortube end, and yes, we even made sure that Karla's got her crown. See you in a moment. Well, welcome on back again to another episode of Listening to the Voices in Our Heads, the podcast where creative minds do get together and talk about their creative processes in a world not meant for their world building and often in much need of it. And as a former teacher, I gotta say, it's a joy to be hanging out with a teacher friendo such as this one. Hello there, Karla. Tell us all about you, lovely.
Hey, Jenna. So I come from a very eclectic background, as you may know. I was sort of chased out of teaching at one point when I was 19. So I went into journalism and I was in high tech doing typography for a while because that was my thing. Went back into journalism and eventually found my way back to teaching. And all that time I was doing writing. And now I finally get to write. So I do tend to write under pen names. So my paranormal romance is under TC Cardella, which was my grandmother's name. And my steampunk is under Frances Delisle, which is the name of my mentor in college who told me that I really needed to be a writer.
See, that's a perfect homage, knowing what I know about your background. So speaking of your background, before we get to talking about careers, what's with the crowns for those who don't know?
So that goes back to National Novel Writing Month. I was on the executive committee for Boston. We were one of the largest nano groups in the country. And it started as a joke because I picked up like a little plastic one for Halloween, like on a Halloween sale. And I wore it as a joke to a write-in and it became my thing. And it broke because it was plastic. So at one point I was walking through, we used to have 24-hour write-ins and we were walking through a shopping mall from one location to the next. And there was one of those stands that sold the bridal tiara. So I was like, oh, I will get a beautiful tiara. And I wore that one for years. And I ended up on the front page of the Boston Globe because they showed up to do an article and I had the tiara on. There is nothing like being in graduate school, walking into class 2 days after this appears on the front page of the Globe and having your professor say, lovely tiara. And I had that one for several years and it broke. And my husband said, oh, I'll fix it for you. And somehow managed to break it into 4 pieces.
Nice.
I don't know how.
Buddy. Thank you.
So he said, well, just order a new one from Amazon. I said, okay, fine. And then I saw 3 and I couldn't decide which one I wanted. So he goes, well, just get all 3. They're cheap. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then it became a reward. So like when I would finish something, I would get a new one. And then I ended up with 7 of them. Well,
last I heard it was 5. You've grown 2 more.
Well, technically it's 6 in a circlet.
We can forgive the circlet question or include. But yes.
Yes.
Very fitting.
So that's how the tiara started. And Mel Power was like, you have to embrace it. That's who you are. And I'm like, yeah. When I go into the Boston Athenaeum, which is one of the oldest private libraries in the country, they have one floor that's a silent floor. And that's where all the writers hang out because that's where we do our writing. And I wear one and I had to put up a little sign that said, yes, it's a tiara. It's my thinking cap. I am working. Because people would stop me and ask to take selfies with me.
Oh, man. Not the right time nor place, but nice.
And I did have one tiara I wore in the classroom because our call and response was, hear ye, and the kids would yell, all hail the queen.
All hail the queen. Nice.
And one year for graduation, I bought all my graduates because it was a looped classroom. So I bought all my graduates, like I bought the boys' crowns, I bought the girls' tiaras, like I bought like party packs. And we knew the principal would be very upset if we had them. So I told him to smuggle them in. And one of the kids smuggled in my tiara. So when the first kid who wasn't graduating, but coming up for their certificate came up, she handed me my tiara. I put it on, and my class yelled, hear ye, in the next cohort yelled, all hail the queen. And they all put on their tiaras and crowns.
You know you had an impact as a teacher when?
Yes. The parents found it hysterical. My principal was not so happy. But
however,
it was memorable.
It was memorable, and it went correctly and well.
Yes.
Therefore, it can be forgiven.
Yes.
That is how we teachers get the kids to do shenanigans, by the way.
Mm-hmm. It is.
You can only do it with a certain group of kids. There's probably classes you couldn't have done that with.
No. But they were the perfect class for that.
Wonderful. And memories for a lifetime. You want to talk about stories at reunions? That's coming up at reunions.
Exactly. And I know because one of the kids who was in that class, I'm currently tutoring his older brother who is trying to get into an AP English class in his junior year of high school. So I've been tutoring him over the summer, and he was like, did you really, really do that with my brother? I was like, yeah, I did.
And some siblings are probably like, dang it.
What can you do with our class? You know,
well, you know who else was in your class is the correct answer.
Exactly. It's like, and the other thing too is he also told me, because when because it was a loop 5th, 6th grade room, I would always give the kids a fountain pen. I would give them a Lamy Safari fountain pen. And we would learn cursive because I used to tell them they have to be able to read ancient texts, no matter what subject they were going into.
They're not wrong.
And so we learned cursive, and he told me I still use my fountain pen. I was like,
the feels. So we've gotten a lot into her teaching background, and you can see what the two of us really talk a lot about. She has them when they're young and innocent, and I have them when they're going, why are we allowed to vote in this crazy world?
Yeah.
And they're still the same person, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So what was your background in journalism like as far as how it impacts your writing?
Okay. So one of the things I learned about journalism is writing short and sweet. Because you have to get a lot of information in very quickly, and you have to hook the reader in and keep them there.
You have 3 to 5 words in journalism?
Basically.
For the hook?
Yeah.
Wow. And we complain about a full sentence novelists.
Mm-hmm. And I wrote, I started in college as a features editor because, when you're an English major, you work for the school paper. So I started doing that. So I was writing, I was editing, and then I learned if I wanted to get out before 2 o'clock in the morning on press nights, I had to learn how to typeset and paste up and lay out everything. So when I got out of college, I was able to work as a mechanical artist, which was...
it's almost the same skill set.
Yeah. And then that led me into a job in high tech with typography. And then my kids came along, and when I want to get back into things, I went back into journalism, and I was writing a weekly column for our local paper. And again, it was taking political issues and distilling it down for a level of people who are like, why do I need to care about political issues?
And you have, these people are usually reading 5-10 minutes at a time. So you don't have much to,
Exactly. And because I get on my high horse about certain things, it got me into some trouble, surprisingly.
Karla, no.
So when Bob Reich decided to run for governor of Massachusetts, I was very upset that people were saying, oh, he's getting into the race too late. He'll never make the ballot because he won't get enough floor vote at the convention. And I was like, why does the subset of a subset get to decide who's on the ballot when the Massachusetts Constitution says you need X, Y, and Z? It doesn't say you need a subset of a subset. And my editor said, wouldn't it be funny if you got elected as a Reich delegate for the state convention? And wrote about it. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. Funny enough, I get elected as a Reich delegate. It was hysterical. And I wrote about it and I chronicled it in the paper, and it was being picked up because it was a chain, it was a local chain. Their columns were showing up in different places and different issues, including the Boston Herald every so often. And because the Reich campaign didn't have a war chest like most of the other campaigns, they asked all of us to write a check to pay for the t-shirts and the cowbells and the miscellanea you need for a convention. So I happily write a check for $85. And because of campaign finance and stuff, it said, what's your career? And I said, acerbic social critic. So I get a call from a reporter at the Boston Globe who wants to figure out what this is about. It turns out it's a friend of my brother's, and we're chatting, and he's also a friend of a friend. So we're chatting, and I tell him the whole story. He thinks it's hysterical. The next morning, I'm sitting at the dining room table eating breakfast, and my husband hands me the Globe. And again, front page of the Globe describes me as an influential media figure. I'm going to tell you, shooting coffee out your nose is a really unpleasant experience.
That burns, not just in temperature,
Exactly. And then the next thing I know is there are like editorials about me. And do I have a conflict of interest because I've been interviewing Democratic candidates all the way along and publishing my interviews? And I disclosed to all of them at the beginning, oh, by the way, this is what's going on. They're like, okay, that's fine. Makes perfect sense. So we did this, and all of a sudden the Globe makes this big deal out of it. And the next thing I know, my sister calls me and says, guess what was in the Washington Post this morning? Howard Kurtz wrote a column about me. And because
as a Marylander, that's one of the two biggest newspapers read in this region next to the Baltimore Sun.
Right.
Just saying.
So I pick up the phone and I called Howard Kurtz, and he gets on the phone with me, and I yelled at him. I'm like, you could have at least called me for a quote rather than just believe something some guy from the Globe said. And he goes, well, you're really feisty. And I'm like,
that's possibly the reaction he wanted, sadly.
And then he started reading me online because he thought I was amusing. And the next thing I know is I get a call from Fox News. They wanted to interview me for a show they had called The Big Picture. And I call my father because my father lives in Florida. And when you move to Florida, it's the law. You have to watch Fox News. So I call my father, and he goes, well, so long as you're not talking to Bill O'Reilly, you should be safe. I said, okay. So I end up being interviewed on Fox
Daddy
News.
Just threw a gauntlet, did he?
So I end up being interviewed by Fox News, and everyone's like, oh my God, you handled them so well in telling your story. It's like, thank you. And after that, I was like, I kind of don't want to do this anymore. I mean, I write about backpack weights and shoveling driveways and why people need to be concerned about air rights over the Mass Pike and things like that. And so I was kind of like, I did it for a couple more years. And then I took a step back and went into the classroom again. So.
And the Queen has been properly hailed since.
Yes.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah.
So now we see why rapid releasing for you is kind of old hat. You're pulling on so many old time management muscle memory at this point, probably.
It really is. And I explained to people about AI that AI is a hammer. It's a tool like a hammer. You can build a house. You can't build a house without a hammer. It's a really important tool. But if I try to fix a kitchen cabinet with it, I'm going to destroy the cabinet.
Exactly. A hammer does both build and destroy.
Right. So I can write And then I can program my AI to say, you are an editor. This is the format you're looking at. Does this work? Where are the strengths? Where are the weaknesses? And it will come back and it will say, this is dragging, or this feels too static. And then I can go back and rewrite.
And that's a good way to look at kind of the difference. And I'm saying this as someone who has seen AI do amazing things for some kids in a classroom. This is where that assistive component does play that role of like Rosie from the Jetsons for some people.
Exactly.
Want it for the people who need it. Please do. Definitely so. Agreed. And I'm even saying that as an editor and whatnot. If it's working for you, let it work for you. Yeah. Love it.
And I make it clear I don't let it write for me.
Right. Right.
Because that's just wrong. And it wouldn't be in my voice either way, you know?
That's a good point. But to me, that's a beefy spell checker.
Exactly. It really
is. It's a beefy spell checker.
And I use, and a lot of us use Pro Writing Aid as a line editor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And granted, I do fight with Pro Writing Aid a lot because, you know, that's Pro Writing Aid. But it is an AI program. And people forget that.
That's the key. It's a program. They're not perfect because they are prescriptive.
Exactly.
Language is not prescriptive. How we edit language is. And if you guys can remember that, you can see where some people really do need the assistive to help them understand why it has to be this rule, not that rule too.
Exactly. And so long as you're using it properly, it can be a great tool in your toolbox.
Yes. Definitely so. And speaking of tools, how essential is it to accurately then quote and research? Since we're talking about the editing end, let's take it back to the pre-writing end. And we can apply this to fiction and nonfiction since you have that journaling background.
Exactly. So, as you know, I want to write a book about Henry David Thoreau, but I want to take it into the paranormal world. I need to make sure that there are accurate things there. Like not giving him a horse would be a very good thing because he didn't own a horse.
No, and a lot of people have said that he, like depictions of him, and I'm like, he maybe rented one, but it's not his.
It's not his. And the other thing too is a lot of people think he was a hermit. He wasn't a hermit. He was anything but a hermit. And, you know, having those historic facts are really important. I published 6 stories in an anthology last year called Bolts of Fiction. This one right here. It was a flash fiction anthology done by the Activated Authors community. And I had 6 stories in there. 4 of them were semi-autobiographical. So I had to make sure I had certain information correct. And that's what makes a story feel real. And I knew it felt real when Daniel Wilcox, whom I so love Dan. We love Dan. Daniel Wilcox told me one of the stories felt so honest to him. He absolutely loved it. He's like, I couldn't have done this without it. And they were all blind reads when he picked his stories. And he was like, I had to have the story in there. And I wasn't surprised when I found out it was you, which made me like love him even more. But because Dan. But again, it has, if I want an authentic voice, if I don't have the facts, if I don't have the realism in there, I'll lose my reader.
I have to very much agree. I get poked fun at because I did a ton of research for season 1, and I'm like, yeah, but somebody's going to call me on something if I'm wrong. And if I don't go with what our history says, and I went alt history on it, I better have a reason. Exactly. Because people, we love stories. We like to know the reasons.
And I read a lot of steampunk. Like I say, I write steampunk under the name Frances Delisle. Now, steampunk is an alternative universe.
It is.
But you still have very Victorian manners. You still have very Victorian styles of dress and clothing and caste systems and everything else. So yeah, I can set something on an airship and have a lot of fun with them racing up and down the European coast in an airship. But I have to keep the technology real. I have to keep the manners real. I have to keep the classes real, or else it doesn't fly.
And if it doesn't fly and doesn't have a reason, it's not getting off the ground.
No, it's not.
Heads up there for sure. Yeah. So when you live in an area of the U.S. where then living history is part hobby, part way of life, because you're up in the Northeast, and I'm saying this as someone living south, y'all, in the Mid-Atlantic, how do you think participating in events that, like the ones you do recently participate in, either as an audience member or a participant, affects your writing? Is it part of the research or part of literally getting in the feels of it?
All of it. All of it. This year, we just celebrate the 250th anniversary of the shot heard around the world. So literally the opening of the Civil War with England. And people forget that we were British citizens. That's always been my beef with the Longfellow poem. He didn't yell, "The British are coming," because we were British. And when you explain that to kids, they're like, "We weren't? What?" It's like, yeah. So that's a really important thing. And that informs a lot of my writing. And I participate a lot, and I get to hang out with historians, which is always fun. Like, I get to hang out with the people who literally write the history books, which is cool.
And when in doubt, always ask.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly. So it is really nice to have those as resources here. I get to live it, as opposed to like somebody who is 3,000 miles away. And I just had this conversation with somebody from California the other day who said, the problem is California history is not the same as New England history. It doesn't have the same kind of muscle memory as how he described it. He said it's its own history. It's its own living document and everything, but it's so different from history for him. And that's why he likes to come out here and he likes to go to events and things. And I was like, okay, that makes sense.
I've heard that a lot. Down even where I live very close to like the Antietam battlefield area of Maryland. For those of you who need some context of where Hagerstown is, it includes the Antietam area. And some people say I come here to feel the energy here because it is not the same as Gettysburg, and they're not that far apart by car.
Exactly.
And the energy here, it's so much more somber in ways Gettysburg is and is not, because of the retreats that took place here. So I definitely feeling that for sure.
Yeah. I'll give you a really good example. I have recently been reading Patricia Briggs's Mercyverse series. And one of her Alpha and Omega books was set in Boston. And if you think I didn't read that with a fine-tooth comb, and she really captured it. But I also found out she and her husband had come to Boston so she could research. How would you get here? How far are these distances? If I'm going to set this here, what kind of island could I put this on? Because she mentions a very specific incident on one of the Boston Harbor islands that I was like, ooh, I didn't know non-locals knew about that one of the islands had been closed down because an old army base and asbestos issues. So yeah, that's really, because again, are 99% of the people reading the book not going to pick up on that? Absolutely. But the 1% of us who do, like, that lends an authenticity to the voices there.
That's one thing I'm hearing about a couple of people who lived in Maryland that I've sent my book 6 to. They're like, oh, it really feels like PG County. And I'm like, yes. And it's that similar feel of they will get an extra, like, instead of just getting icing, they got the part of the cake with all the roses on it.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
That no one got 0 icing. They just got the rose with their slice.
Yeah. And I'll give you another good example is the book Dread Nation, which if you have not read, that is a fabulous book.
That's a case study for authors. Heads up.
It really is, because she understood and in reading it, when she's talking about different places, I'm like, she's talking about Johns Hopkins. She's talking about UMD. when she's discussing campuses. And this takes place at Gettysburg. So yeah, what she's talking about is perfectly on par for the history.
It is. And that, to be able to go there and do that research, even if you do a virtual field trip, try. It doesn't give you the same simulation, but it's better than nothing. Definitely so. Definitely so. So since I mentioned virtual field trip and that being a teaching term, favorite thing to teach as a teacher?
I love teaching writing. It was fun to teach writing. Mostly what I loved about teaching writing is watching kids go from, what? I added the word wicked. What do you mean I need more description? I said it was wicked hot, not just hot, to writing stories. The best compliment I got was when they were hiring my replacement. My principal handed current work to one of the incoming candidates. She goes, I can't get high school students to write like this.
Yeah,
like,
I will.
I don't know how you got fifth graders to write this, but I can't get high school students to add this level of detail.
Because by the time they're in high school, they know that if they say, I don't know and I don't care enough, the adults will just say, okay, that's your choice, and go on with their day.
Yeah.
At 5th, 6th grade, they're just impressionable enough that if you can loop them in that early and remind them how to empower themselves through it, it lasts until high school.
Exactly. And the other piece of all that were the parents that used to say, I don't understand why you're spending so much time on writing. They're going to go into the STEM field. And I'm like, because if they can't collaborate, if they can't write a research paper, if they can't write a report or an academic paper, they're not going into a STEM field.
I can attest. One of my jobs in college was writing tutor. Guess who were the kids I worked with the most? Yep. I worked with people on so many lab reports from science classes for that reason.
And the other thing I taught them was everything is a story. It doesn't matter if it's your expense report for your executive job or your bio for your football career or your lab report for your science class. Everything is a story. You have to treat it as a story, and you have to hook me and keep me involved.
And even, like, goodness, job applications, if you don't do that on there, the humans love those stories.
I know.
What is it you miss most now that you've let teaching be a past life of this life in ways?
I do miss the kids. I had so much fun with them. I miss that a lot.
You're free to skip this and we can cut it out if need be. When you retired and students found out, what was not just this last year's group, their siblings and whatnot, when word got out, what was the reaction?
Well, the running joke was I was going to divorce them all and run away to an alpaca farm. So whenever they would frustrate me, I'm like, that's it. I'm out of here. I'm going to go buy an alpaca farm, and that's it. And when the student I'm tutoring, when his mother said, well, what will it take for you to get into honors English? He goes, well, Miss Hailer, but she's already on an alpaca farm.
Nice. Nice. Oh,
I did have kids from the next cohort going please, can you stay one more year, please? And I was like, nope, I can't. It's time for me to go.
I have a group of kids from my creative writing teaching pathway that had that reaction of, can you stay one? I graduate next year. You've been with me since freshman year. Nope. Sorry. And they're like, you are our Mrs. G from Freedom Writers and you're leaving us now. And I'm like, okay, you had to go there. Sorry, kids. I love you. I moved on to teaching at a different school. So, wow. So, people skills wise, how has your quite different careers, we'll put it that way, impacted you as a writer?
It's given me the voices that I listen to in my head. It's really nice because we tend to get locked into something where writers are isolated. I mean, whether you're sitting at your desk or you're in a coffee shop with headphones on or whatever, it's really important to take the headphones off and listen to what's happening around you, because that's how you hear the different conversations. That's how you're able to develop the characters. If I want to create a totally unlikable character, but that is unrealistic, people aren't going to buy it. So if I can be sitting in a coffee shop and I'm hearing that guy who is really, really rude to the girl behind the counter, I can fold that into a character with an authentic voice.
That's the key word, is the authentic part, because that's what therefore makes it relatable. And this brings in a word that I love from education. We build a rapport with our readers that way. And you want to talk about a master of building rapport? Read her books. Read her books. If you have not, description box below for sure.
Yeah.
So, go ahead. Are you going to add anything? Okay. So, if you could suggest one thing for people to read or listen to after this interview, what would it be and why?
Of my stuff or stuff in general?
I'll let you pick either or both.
One thing, when people ask me about craft books, which craft books do I read? Which ones are on my shelf? I always go to Sasha Black, because they're written in her voice. It's a lot of really good information, and and if you've ever heard Sasha's voice, you hear it in the books. She is reading aloud to you in your head, complete with the F-bombs. Because that's
I was just thinking the F-bombs are probably helping that. So good intuition on that.
Yep. As far as my stuff goes, I have been having so much fun with the Paranormal Shifter series. I loved my bears, and I'm going to go back to them soon. I've got 5 bears right now. And I just finished my 3rd cat shifter, and they've been a lot of fun. See, bears tend to clan together. So it's really easy to build a community of bears. Cats tend to be solo.
Or they attach to a shifter not of their likeness, kind of like how you see dog and cat best friends.
Yeah. So, which is part of the reason why I've been introducing humans into that little shifter corner. Because, like, you've got a shifter whose college roommate falls in love with her husband's best friend, type of thing. So while the series are all standalone books, they are all interrelated, which is pretty typical of romance series. So definitely the Wildstone Bend are my bear shifters, and the Pine Pride Creek are my cat shifters. And I'm debating whether I want to do moose shifters, because they take place in New Hampshire, White Mountains.
Now that makes sense when you say a location.
Yeah.
I've been around the New Hampshire area because of in-laws being in Maine. So yeah, that would fit.
My Trinity Falls series is, we have a couple of Selkies there and a wood nymph. And we're going to be introducing some more characters there. I want to go back up to Maine this summer so I can kind of hear the whispers and see which stories want to be told up there. So yeah, those ones are a lot of fun.
Blast to read, just saying.
Yeah, just saying. They're a lot of fun. They're short reads. So, they're only a couple hours. They're great beach reads, is what I like to say.
And that's actually a nice way to go about it, because it seems like people are starting to trend towards bite-sized, more consumable, even in just chapter length, we'll put it that way. So
exactly.
Have any of your students found your books yet? And what do you think reactions to those are going to be?
Yeah. They haven't found the romance, because that's totally in that category all romance writers are in. You want everyone to read your books but the people who know you. But a couple of my students did get their hands on Bolt of Fiction.
Oh, nice.
And even though they weren't written for that audience, they are written for an adult audience, and there is some language in there. One of them was like, oh my God, the Nightmare Rider. And I'm like, well, that's based on my family history. It's like, I took their family history and made it a paranormal story. And they were like, it was so cool. So
That's amazing. I love it.
So the ones who knew about that really loved them. A couple of their parents were like, so tell me the Cinemax After Dark name. I'm like, nope. You'll have to find that on your own.
Yeah, when former students ask, I have to tell them that it's my first name is the same because they know me as Mrs. Jenna S.
Yeah.
Put it that way for the name. And I tell them that's the same.
Yeah.
You won't find me though. The few that have, it's been because they were watching something of Sarah's and then found my channel. So thanks, Hard Breathings. So,
I mean, I know that I'll be found eventually. I just hope they don't tell me they found me.
That's the part I worry about. I think more of what's going to be the uproar of, oh my God.
Yeah, because it is spicy romance. And it's not as spicy as it could be. You know,
it is spicier than what they would probably expect applies.
Exactly. So my whole thing is like, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, the crown is all the more fitting that the queen hiding behind her fan of, sure, if you think so. No. Oh, she's prepared.
I have my fan.
When you're around an educator, they are usually prepared, whether you think they are or not.
Exactly. And again, you know, everything in my classroom was about having fun while you learned.
Because if you're not having fun, you're not learning.
Exactly. And it was always a compliment when a kid would look at our bulletin board at the end of the unit and say, I learned so much and it didn't feel like it.
Yes, that's a good review tool. Like a way I don't see a lot of people using bulletin boards anymore.
Yeah.
They want their pretty aesthetics and their systems.
Yeah.
But where do they get to see their final product published in the room then?
Exactly. And as one of my friends said, you will never be a Pinterest teacher. And I'm like, nope, probably not.
Nope. I wasn't either, and didn't want to be. One, that cost money we were not given back.
Yeah.
Two, I would rather let them have access to my creativity by teaching them how to use their creativity.
Exactly. Well, when I would teach the American Revolution, I would start with, what's your leading questions? And when you're a kid, ask me, how did they make maps without GPS? Which is an excellent question. So I brought in a surveyor.
Or rather, cartomancy, as it might as well be called, is an art form, kids. Oh my goodness.
So I brought in a local surveyor, and he brought in the big brass compass table with the 10-inch links, and he explained to them how they measured and how they did that. And he linked it to modern surveying and talked about why he had to take law courses, because surveyors are often called upon to settle legal disputes.
More often than not, that the first person called, yeah.
And I could then bring it in later when I was talking about the transcendentalists, because, of course, Thoreau was a surveyor and solved a lot of legal issues. And he was meticulous in his surveying. Like, he didn't just draw a random curve. He would measure like 26, 27 points to make sure he got it right. Because he might have been just a little neurodiverse. Just saying.
His whole group of friends were more than just a little.
So, you know, so things like that. And it would give, and then we use the I Survived the American Revolution as our mentor text. So their narrative writing unit got folded in with the history, where I gave them all a battle that did not take place in New England, with the exception of a couple kids who kind of needed the local angle. And I gave them like a name, their age, in a situation. They had to go research it and then write a short story about that battle for their narrative fiction.
I've used escaped rooms to hold debates for similar skill sets. Yeah. Oh goodness.
And the stories they produced were amazing. Like, one parent looked at me and said, I had no idea my kid could write a story, let alone one like this. I did.
I knew. And my favorite response to that is to say to the parent, surprise. If you want them to do it again, tell them that you like it every single time and you want to hear more. That's the key.
And I remember my principal looking at them saying, well, wouldn't you rather do a more interactive project than writing? And one of the kids like, why? Don't you think we can write? And I was so proud of him.
For one, that, and two, don't they get enough of the other stuff in all their other classes? Probably applies.
Yeah. I mean, I did it in other areas. So, and again, they had that love of history that came out of that, which is why one of them is a history major now. He's gone off to college to become a history major, which made me very happy because he was originally like, I'm going to be an engineer. And then he was like, I really like history. I'm like, you can do both. But he got early acceptance to college and he's going to be a history major. And it made my heart sing. And then my last year when I taught the American Revolution, I had all Swifties in my room. And they started with, do we have to do history? And I'm
yes, if you want to understand a lot of what she's talking about. Yes.
Yes. And so one of the girls who I was a little worried about, I pulled out her notebook to check it after school once. And under John Hancock, she had written, richest man in Boston, fancy pants baller. All the boys want to be him. All the girls want to be with him till George comes along. And then he was jelly. And I'm like, okay, we're good. And then under Sam Adams, she just wrote hot mess.
She's not wrong, especially if she can cite why.
So it's like, I win. Like, I just won history.
Those were my favorite essays to get turned back in. I would always do a pick a political thing and go with it kind of research essay. I don't care what they picked their politics for. I didn't even care if it was this world, Finland, Denmark, or somewhere in Star Wars. They could pick any political thing, real or fictional, and write a paper on it.
Yep. That
was the paper where all the kids would always rip stuff to shreds. And it's that reaction of, I won.
Yep. The other thing, too, that happens, she went from the beginning of the year of like, do we have to do history to when we did our Civil War projects? Because she wants to be a fashion designer, wanted to do something about fashion around the Civil War and did the research to figure out that's when ready-wear clothing started to be introduced and why, and discovered like Frye boots, which were a Marlboro mask. Yes. We all thought they were Western wear. No, they were in Marlboro. And they came up with the first standardized men's shoe sizing. And
yes,
why?
They did.
And she just ran with it. By the end, she was like, what she presented, her parents like, I don't know how you pulled that out of her.
I had a student who is now studying medical degree over at Johns Hopkins. Similar thing, we got to a topic and I said, you can study medicine, the beginning of medicine in any war. And they're like, oh, I live an hour and a half from Antietam's medicine museum. Can I go there for a Saturday? I'm not going to tell you, no, that's a primary resource, yo. And seriously, like those opportunities, kids are craving them. So fellow teachers, if you're still teaching, we love you. We support you. Steal our ideas.
And again, part of the reason why I stepped away is because more and more schools are kind of like, we have standards. I left the public school system for a private school because I was handed a script. And I was like, if you're handing me a script, why did I get a master's degree?
I'm sorry. Why are we standardizing an education that is not serving fit? Jenna, shush.
Yep. I know the feeling.
Bing! Wrong channel. This is what happens when you get two educators together.
Exactly.
What happens.
Exactly.
So, any shout outs to people in your community? You've mentioned a couple of people already. How about others?
I really cannot say enough for the people in the heart breathing community like you and Jody Jean and Angela and all those wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people, because you guys keep us going. I love that Rachel and SD and all those people who keep author tubers going, because you're not writing alone. And I will always give love to Dan Wilcox and the now deactivated authors community, because again, it's such a lovely thing to be able to meet with people. We are using a Discord room. We used to use Zoom, but now we're over on Discord. And it's great that we can work together. And then somebody will say, I'm really having a problem with this. And we can all talk it through. Faye Trask, who has been writing the Conduit series, Pandora's Box is playing a big role in her third book. And the books are set in Boston. So she'll be like, all right, so I'm trying to figure out if they're going from this point of Boston to this point. And I know you know that point in Boston, and we can discuss it. We joke about the 2-week deep dive into Versailles for the 3 sentences.
Yes.
And she got to tease me back about the 6-month deep dive into Martha Hunt and how she only ended up being like a footnote in the first chapter.
I've had similar conversations with Mama Maggie Ward about what's where in Baltimore again.
Yep. Yeah.
Same thing. And I'm like, wait a minute, let me make sure that street still goes one way and not in the opposite direction now. But yes.
Yeah. So it could be like, and then there was something she's like, I'm trying to visualize this. I haven't been there in long enough because she lives up in Maine. So she's like, but I haven't been in that corner of Boston for a while. I was like, oh, did you know that the Taj Hotel has video cameras? It was like, they do? I was like, yeah, they have Boston Webcam. Oh, cool. Okay, that's all right. That's how that corner changed.
You never know what resources are literally within 1 degree of separation of you. Look up.
Exactly. And I love that my British friends and I can talk about different things. One of them lives near that Arthur statue on the coast of Penzance in Cornwall. So I've been able to ask him questions about it for certain steampunk stuff, because he's also a steampunk author. Eden Collier, if you haven't seen, he writes, he's on Substack. His Steampunk Chronicles are there. He writes a weekly newspaper called the Illyrium Chronicles. But every so often I'll be able to say, like, so they're coming off of here. So what would that be like? Do you think that statue would have been there? What about this? What about that? And it's just been a lovely resource to be able to talk directly to people.
2000% agreed there. Mm-hmm. So before we wrap up and wind down, this episode is coming out on Karla's birthday. So follow her everywhere. Go buy one of her books as a birthday present. Dang it. And what other places and where can they find you otherwise? So
hopefully my YouTube channel will have launched by my birthday. We're working on it now. And that will be called, is it Karla's Gone to the Woods?
I think that's Karla's Going to the Woods.
Yep, Karla's Going to the Woods. And so I'm working on that. So hopefully you'll have the link by then. You can find me currently on Amazon. You can follow my author page as TC Cardella. And that's my paranormal romance. I am looking for a new home for my serial steampunk fiction. Because the platform I was using has undergone some changes, and I'm trying to find a more permanent home, and that might end up being following in the footsteps of some of our friends like Inca York and finding a way to self-sustain that.
Inca and I last I heard Inca was enjoying Fourth Wall. I'm also enjoying Fourth Wall. It's a fun try. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. So I'm looking more at things like that rather than, because again, when everything blew up last year, it was that reminder that I may own my work, but I don't own the platform. And Radish just folded. Vela has folded.
A lot of the subscription, and this is something that a student of mine did a paper on a couple years ago, not just about like those subscription platforms, but Netflix, Paramount, like there's so many of them now,
right? That
you're starting to see the whole industry start to go on its downtrend on the bell curve. Yep.
So we'll be looking for that.
Well, I can't wait to see all the amazing things you've got going. And definitely, everyone, make sure it's her birthday, y'all. Cheer her on.
Yay.
We're cheering you on.
Thank
Above
you.
all, your voice matters.